All right, we're back with Dr. Tom Schwartz, a Vanderbilt University political science and history professor. I'm Hannah McDonald. We're talking about the conflict in Ukraine tonight. We're going to shift for the next few minutes and talk a bit about the domestic political impact. The midterm elections are coming up. And I'm wondering what the impact you think has been. Has one party really tried to take advantage, for better or worse, of this conflict and done anything that stands out?
The interesting thing is that the conflict has produced probably one of the few really bipartisan moments we've had in American politics in the recent times. The measures to aid Ukraine passed with both Republican and Democratic support. There is a faction of the Republican Party, but a more extreme part of the party that really that argues that we shouldn't be spending any money on Ukraine when the border in the South and other issues are there. But most Republicans actually, and most Democrats, have supported the war, supported the American assistance to Ukraine in the war. It's been a pretty clear black and white issue. Now the question, this could get complicated the longer the war goes on, the more it costs, the more the United States seems to become committed to the war. But right now it's one of the few bipartisan areas where there's a large measure of agreement between the two parties. And interestingly enough, sometimes wars or foreign crises help the incumbent president because he can come on as a leader and talk about that. And President Biden certainly talked about the war in Ukraine when he gave the State of the Union and the rest. But the popularity bump from that has largely faded and completely disappeared. And so it has not really had a major impact. I doubt it will, at least right now, it will have much of an impact on American politics.
This is a question I feel like I already know the answer to. However, if we put aside inflation and some other pandemic-related consequences, I'm wondering, do Americans ever vote because of foreign policy reasons when Americans aren't in these wars? This has been an interesting one. People were very much invested in February and March. Maybe it's changing now, but do you see anybody going to the ballot box, maybe putting aside those bigger issues at the moment, but because how they feel about this?
I think the emotions are certainly there, but as a ballot box initiative, unless Americans are directly involved, it's very rare to have anything really affect those concerns. And especially because there's not a strong partisan aspect to it. You could imagine a situation, and there have been situations in the past where the United States supported one group or another, and it was very controversial. Say in the 1980s, when the United States was supporting insurgencies in Latin America and Central America against the governments there. That was very unpopular. The Democrats were very opposed, Republicans supported, but it really didn't have much impact on the ballot box at that. Americans weren't directly involved. It involved sort of funding and things of that nature. And I think this is a little bit along those lines, along with the fact that for the most part, Republicans and Democrats agree to support Ukraine. Now, if there were a break in that, if there were a partisan issue developed over support for Ukraine, say a proposed settlement which the United States is pushing on Ukraine, which say one party, Republicans or Democrats, say that we shouldn't be doing that, and it really got that way, you could see some impact, but very unlikely. Most elections really still matter in terms of a direct impact on Americans.
And you said that the bump that President Biden may have initially received, it's pretty much
It's disappeared.
Gone.
In fact, his popularity today, according to the Real Clear Politics estimate, is at the lowest it's been his entire presidency. That's largely, of course, I think, largely a consequence of inflation, but still it's dropped precipitously.
There are other things going on in Washington, and there are things going on Capitol Hill, including the January 6th hearings that we were interested in your opinion. How do you think people in other countries are tuning in, if at all, right now to those?
There hasn't been a lot of reporting on the issue right now about foreign reactions. I think part of that is because foreign reactions to the hearings probably simply confirmed what many people abroad already believed, namely that Donald Trump Trump did not accept the results of the election, that he told a crowd of his supporters to keep fighting, and even if he might have said don't use, or peacefully or something like that, it was clear that he was encouraging action. And I think in that sense, people abroad are not invested in some of the very technical issues about how much did he do or not do. They just think that he did not want to accept the results of the election. Now, people abroad in many countries have experience with people who don't want to accept the results of elections.
True.
One of the great advantages in the United States, one of the great things about our history has been that largely we've had peaceful transfers of power. So many people abroad might have been shocked by what happened on January 6th, but not, they understood it. So the hearings to them may seem simply pounding down what was an obvious answer, that Trump didn't accept the results of the election.
Does it ever cross your mind how these hearings would be going if Donald Trump was still president?
Well, there wouldn't be hearings. I mean, if he had prevailed in some manner, this would not be an issue. And keeping in mind, Trump's claims of voter fraud were all, have all been debunked. But keep in mind that if the results were changed in 3 states and by a margin of only about 45,000 votes, you would have had a 269 electoral college tie, and then it would have gone to the House of Representatives, where the Republicans had the majority. So he almost became president, even though he lost the popular vote quite significantly, and the rest, it was still a very close election.
Well, you are here on OpenLine tonight, and we want to hear from you at home about what you want to know out of Dr. Tom Schwartz. We're primarily talking about the Ukraine conflict, but there is so much going on right now with supply chain issues. Gas prices are climbing closer to $5 here in the state of Tennessee. So give us a call, 737-7587. The area code, of course, is 615. We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we're going to cover some of those other issues impacting you and your wallet.